Somewhere in the post-Y2K world, businesses became obsessed with dashboards. Conceptually, it was driven by Kaplan and Norton's balanced scorecard approach, which was intended to give business leaders a set of high-level metrics that they could use to get a holistic view of business performance. But around the same time, we started to see rapid advancements in chip technology and Windows and the Office productivity suite, which allowed businesses to get much better at producing high quality graphics. So when these two factors combined, the dashboards became ubiquitous. Everything from sales funnels through to financial KPIs to customer analytics, everyone wanted a dashboard. And they wanted them to be pretty and they wanted them to be engaging. But they were originally designed as a powerful way to get a bird's eye view of performance, but they've now become sort of integral to everyday business operations, and sort of everything has become a dashboard. But amid this frenzy, I believe we've lost a sense of what the original problem is we were trying to solve. The purpose of information is to enable decision making, not to just decorate our screens. So I'll argue that dashboards have reached their best before date, and we must, as a matter of urgency, move and find more advanced ways to help business leaders make better decisions faster. But to understand how we got here, we need to briefly look at the evolution of the dashboard. And the dashboard itself, the original term refers to the wooden plate that used to sit in front of the driver in a horse-drawn carriage that used to stop the mud being dashed up or being thrown up by the horse's hoofs. So the dashboard was originally a protective thing that stopped the drivers getting covered in mud. And then when we took that concept to the automobile, we kept the dashboard, but we started to realize that we could use that place to put all the essential gauges and critical information in one place that was near eye level, to allow the driver to remain focused on the road, but also get a quick understanding about what was happening with the vehicle itself. But by the late 1990s, as businesses adopted computers, business intelligence dashboards emerged as a way to aggregate data from various information sources and present it in a really easy to understand way. Originally, companies like SAP and Oracle and Microsoft built these tools because they were operating with systems that had large data sets, and people found it very hard to see tables and to pick out information quickly. So they introduced dashboards to try and make it simpler for people to understand what was happening. But in more recent times, the whole dashboarding industry has become very specialized, and now you have modern dashboards like Tableau and Power BI and Cognos, which are interactive and provide real-time drill down that allows users to customize and see things in an enormous amount of depth very quickly. But technology companies lost sight of the problem that actually needed to be solved. Business teams now churn out endless reports and dashboards, but they forget that the dashboard is a means to an end. It's not anything on its own. It's designed to help a leader make a decision. But unfortunately now you can have dashboards that are completely filled with numbers and charts that have got every metric under the sun and still not have the foggiest idea what you're supposed to do. So now, instead of protecting us from mud, they actually protect us from productivity. And this really brings us to the heart of the issue here, which is that information alone is not enough to drive a decision. We need to move beyond information into knowledge. And to illustrate this, I'd talk about the classic DIKW pyramid. And this is a conceptual model that talks about how data moves into information, how information moves into knowledge, and knowledge moves into wisdom. And this concept's been around for at least 100 years, but it's never been more relevant than today. At the base of the pyramid is the data, and these are the raw facts, the things with no inherent meaning. In a business sense, these can live in your ERP or your CRM. It's like an invoice or a lead or a transaction. On its own, this data is almost useless. Data is in fact a term that I try to avoid because I find it, people use it to describe all sorts of business decision making, but really data in itself is not very useful on its own. But to make sense of data, we need to aggregate it, and which is the next level above, which is information. So information is data that's been given context and organized in a useful way. When you aggregate data into a report or a dashboard, you're turning that into information that humans can interpret. And when you can interpret information, you can compare it over time or with other sets of information to start to process and get an understanding of what's happening. But information alone doesn't answer what happened or why did it happen. And to understand that next level of depth, you need to move into knowledge. So knowledge is achieved when information is analyzed and interpreted within the context of an organization. And we do this to derive patterns and insights and reach the so what? So what do I do with this? What does it tell me? And in the DIKW model, knowledge is what connects cause and effect. So once you understand the cause and the effect, you've got a chance at being able to generate an insight, which is then moves up to the wisdom layer, which says, and this is what I should do about it. And so while information is interesting, it doesn't tell you why is the information changing and what does that mean for a broader organizational sense. Just a few days ago, I was talking with a chief procurement officer of a large company, and she was complaining about the fact that the company had spent a small fortune on developing an information dashboarding system. And she had a spend cube, and she had a contract cube, and she had a supply cube. But the most important part of her job was managing the top 10 supply risks. And there was nowhere, despite all this investment, that she could actually get a really easy understanding of her top 10 supply risks. And you know, this is actually not that uncommon. I hear a lot of companies over-investing in information and under-investing in knowledge. The problem with that is that having more information doesn't always lead to a better outcome. In fact, it can be quite overwhelming. Many business leaders today feel that they are drowning in dashboards and reports and updates. Our inboxes are full of reports and charts that will never be read. And the problem with that is that critical insights remain buried, like the proverbial needle in a haystack. This obsession with dashboards actually also creates extra work because employees invariably must make numerous selections and bookmark all their dashboards. And more often than not, they just download them to Excel so they can then format it for the way that they want. It's a big reason, I believe, why over 90% of staff are frustrated by internal IT systems because it's so hard to get information that helps them make decisions. If every manager has to spend part of their day playing detective to try and find these insights, you really wonder how much value these dashboards are providing. But we know that when business leaders can get to the insights quickly, they can dramatically accelerate productivity. And when business leaders can distill information into clear, relevant, and timely recommendations, it allows them to focus on the high impact activities instead of going and sorting and filtering on their own. The goal of business leaders is actually to achieve this. So business leaders are meant to take information and translate that into knowledge as quickly as possible. And the reason for that is that knowledge is what actually drives decisions. And decisions is what delivers the action. And up until now, we could really only achieve that information processing into knowledge with human analysts. In other words, we'd employ people who studied all of the information and apply their knowledge and their skill and their experience to come up with recommendations and decide what they should do. Human intuition remains invaluable, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. But as the volume of information grows, this manual approach doesn't scale well at all. we find there's actually a limit to the amount of information that a business leader can process mentally each day. Too much information leads to something called decision fatigue, where people just can't be bothered making a decision because they feel overwhelmed. And this is where artificial intelligence really comes into its own. As our ability to generate information increases, we find that more and more business leaders are turning to AI tools to synthesize that and provide interpretations or recommendations. We're seeing what some people call the rise of decision support or knowledge orchestrators to help business leaders make sense of all the information that they need to process. Kiraa, the product that we've developed, is a great example of a knowledge orchestration tool. And our approach is to replace the classic dashboard with an AI-powered analyst who understands the business context and provides actionable insights to a business leader. Kiraa does this by speaking the language of the business, eliminating the need for business users to go into or become data scientists. You don't need the business intelligence tools or experts to go and process information on your behalf. You can use the power of generative AI to achieve the analytical capability at a scale and a speed that is not possible with human analysts. This approach accelerates decision making, but also improves management productivity because the AI can process information far faster and far more quickly than a human ever can. This means that instead of wading through a set of weekly reports or spending days analyzing information, executives can get information pretty much on the fly. And this enables what we call decision velocity. Now, dashboards have come a long way from the wooden boards that used to sit in front of the horse-drawn carriages. But today, dashboards have become ubiquitous in every office and every management scenario, and they remain very valuable for presenting information. But it's clear now that having information isn't enough. In a world overflowing with information, the winners are the ones who can rapidly distill information into knowledge so they can then use that knowledge to drive decisions and actions. A beautiful dashboard might tell you dozens of things about your business, but it won't tell you what you must do. It's up to humans with the help of smart systems to interpret information, gain knowledge, and make decisions. So by refocusing the purpose of information and embracing the tools and practices that elevate information into knowledge, businesses can unlock a tremendous amount of productivity and strategic advantage. The slick dashboard that took months to develop by a team of developers might be next to useless if it doesn't lead to any meaningful action. Business is not about knowing, business is about doing. So we need to be using these tools to help achieve the actual problem that we need to solve, which is to help humans make better decisions faster. So let's use our dashboards wisely, but let's also use our leaders' time even more wisely and help them make their decision making even easier by not putting them to extra work, by allowing them to make the insights and the connections far more easily using advanced AI technology.